another message concerning the current protests and social movement. This one is kind of like walking the line. I thought about making a much more controversial recording, but after trying once, I thought it's not worth it. I'm not going to do it, at least not right now. I'll just say that I support what's happening in spirit, and I support what's happening in many ways in policy. However, there are some things, I don't go all the way with everything that is being suggested or demanded. I'm not even there, for the most part, on the explanation of what the problem is. Largely what I hear from famous people anyway, describing what the problem is, I think there's a lot of exaggeration going on in a specific way. So don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm on the side of reform and what would be called progress in this field. I just am very averse to exaggeration. I think it's actually something that would lead to more harm than good once you have opponents that think in the ways I think. It would at least be too easy for your opponents to say you're lying and therefore act like they have dismissed your entire argument when they haven't. Let's get on with the actual point here, I guess. When the Black Lives Movement started, I was in college. I remember, of course it was very big. It was enormous. And I remember even me, someone who was on the side of that kind of progress, I remember thinking, that's a dumb thing to say, obviously, but all lives matter. And there was no accusations toward me that I'm aware of that I was racist for thinking that. And in fact, there was no part of me that was racist for thinking that. It was a response to a name that I thought was obvious, but also unnecessarily restrictive. I mean, not inclusive. Why would you say that? I mean, I understand. I understand it more now. I think that's easy to say. I've heard it recently put in an analogy like this, that when there's a row of houses and one of them's on fire and the firemen come and they're spraying all the houses with water, it's like, what are you doing, dude? Of course all the houses matter, but that one right there is on fire. So focus on that. So yeah, this one house matters. Like, it needs to be said. It needs to be at the forefront of everyone's attention in that moment. And this is a moment in history. So I get it. I didn't get it immediately. That's the point I'm trying to make right now. It didn't make me racist. Not that it didn't make me racist, although it didn't. It didn't betray my already existent racism. That's important. Although the landscape has changed and this movement has been with us for a while and the phrase Black Lives Matter has been with us for a while, and you would expect anyone who could understand it would understand it by this point. When you consider the kinds of news sources those people must have been listening to all the while, when would the message have got through to them? It's likely never. So I think, look what we just saw with the Drew Brees case. Here's someone that it certainly should have known. No doubt about it. But then really how strong and what sort of backlash should he have received for saying what he said about the American flag when it really has nothing to do with the protests? Yeah, we get that. But if he was only listening to Fox News, and he is a self-proclaimed Donald Trump supporter, so it seems likely enough that that's where he would be getting his news. And if he's not talking to certain people about things like that, I mean, we don't know. That's my point. We don't know where he's getting his information. But if the fact is he didn't know, and thought saying that about the flag was a good idea, which he apparently did. I just think more compassion and patience and understanding that, well, he didn't know. Some combination of things brought us to the point in 2020 when he didn't know. I don't know how mad you can be at a guy for not knowing something. You'll want to say it was willful ignorance, or he should have known and ignored it because of his privilege. I don't know about all that. I mean, you can make that make sense, but I think there's too many assumptions in there for my liking. It's not necessary. I think you may have won Drew Brees just as quickly by a less vicious route anyway. But this is all speculation at this point anyway, so no point. At least no point on the Drew Brees front. But going forward, that's how I would treat it with other people. This morning I saw people angrily, at least they seemed angry, angrily defending the defund the police movement. Hashtag defund the police. And they were explaining with a lot of attitude that defund the police doesn't actually mean defund the police, as if everyone is already supposed to know that, having just heard about the movement because it's brand new. And in half the cases, only having heard about it from sources like Fox News. A source, at any rate, that wouldn't give it the benefit of the doubt and try to explain it in a generous way. People that would only explain it in ways meant to vilify it. Now, when you name your movement Defund the Police, you make the job of your opponents way too easy. The obvious and the most simple way to interpret what that phrase means is the literal sense. Defund the police. There's no questions about it. Except there is a question about it that only people who take the time to learn what it really means would ever understand. So to be upset, to lose patience with people who don't know that defund the police doesn't actually mean defund the police, already? You're already out of patience with them? You're already angry at them? You may already be calling them racist? That is a bridge too far. Is that even a saying? I don't know. But it just is very reminiscent of the early days of Black Lives Matter in my mind. You say Black Lives Matter, you know what you mean. I have eventually come to learn what you mean, and that's all good. But when people at the outset of these movements with names that have a very easy to understand literal interpretation, although wrong, go down the wrong path, you really can't fault them, can you? I'm asking for patience. I'm asking for understanding. I'm asking for much more reserve before calling someone racist.